Hello, my name's Rain and this is my first YouTube video. I created this channel because I wanted somewhere to document anything creative I do and have it somewhere I can see and share it with my close friends. I've been in a bit of a rut recently where I'll make something but I'll never resume it. I'll just start it and then just abandon it. And I believe that in a way having a channel, it would provide me more motivation to keep creating. So even though this is for myself, it'll still make me accountable in a non-scary, threatening way. So right now, as you're watching this, you might be like, what the hell is he doing to that poor thing? Well, to answer that, I'm skinning it alive. I bought a perfectly healthy sketchbook, but the black cover was irritating me because it was so boring, and I tried making it nicer with like 2 stickers, but the black itself was making me dissatisfied because I've had like black sketchbooks so far at home, and I think I'm just tired of it, so I began to leave my grubby iPad kid handprints all over it by carving out random shapes. I had sticker paper I bought from Walmart not too long ago, so I went on Internet Archives for some old artworks or literature I could use as assets, and I found a list of some sorts and an image of this wonderful lady leaning on a rock, and that is me using magazines from an antique store and using scans from those magazines to create more sticker sheets. I say "and" a lot and I apologize for that, and my recording and aspect ratio editing technical stuff is pretty amateur and I'm gonna apologize for that. You're gonna have to suck it up though because I'm new to this. So this part was mainly just me reorganizing things, rearranging things, what looks good here, what looks bad here. I would say it's intuitive, just sort of vibes based, and it's a make it up as you go type of situation. That's something I like about art in my personal relationship with art. Most of the time I'm making it up as I go, and structure can be good, but I personally dislike a rigid, methodical approach. I think that's why I dropped out of the pre-graphic design program. The rigidness of it helped provide structure for some, while for me it just made it more stressful. I am using foundations of design after all to see what juxtaposition fits better. The thing about the program that really stressed me out was the demanded perfection. I've had obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, since I was around 3. And the types of it has shifted around for quite a bit over the past 2 decades of my life, but one thing that's been prominent recently is perfectionism, for sure. That doesn't necessarily mean I have to have objects a certain way to feel safe or comfortable, as my room's pretty free-spirited. But it's really difficult for me to be able to physically move on from one section of any task if it doesn't meet this like specific unspoken standard I have for myself. And it'll just be me rewording or rearranging things, and I'm sure this is a bit of an unclear explanation and it might just sound like anxiety, but given my history of other types of OCD I've dealt with, I know the familiar feeling of distress. So that just means that it's very difficult to rip myself away from that part and move on to the next, even if that's during a really tight time frame. But anyways, yeah, this really draining or distressing mentality regarding perfectionism does not bode well with like the actual program that asks for perfectionism. Basically, another example I could think of is when I had a ground plan map due, and on the day of, normally folks might just finish it as much as they can and then turn it in, then move on to the next part. But I just physically couldn't get myself to move on. Like, it's extremely distressing. It feels like I'm in a tar pit. I just can't get this feeling off of me. My chest doesn't feel right. All this to say that having a sketchbook is exposure therapy in a way, as any mark I make on paper is permanent, and if I do mess up, it forces me to think outside the box and figure out a solution on how to fix it. With digital art, I can erase the mistake, but traditional art is a lot harder for me to just undo something. I typically have to find a different solution. The studio art major is a lot less demanding in regards to perfectionism, which is also why I switched from graphic design to studio art as a major. But it still impacts my art and how I go about it. I did decide to cushion it a bit by using acrylic markers, which helps with undoing because you basically just paint over it. So what I did just now was use a completely blank piece of clear sticker paper, and I just smacked it on to give it a protective layer. Now I'm onto the back, and I used this random scrap doodle I had, and I put it in PixArt, and I just put a pair of wings on it and some overlay of another old picture. I think during this age of digital media where we started to not be able to actually own things that we purchase, I think something tactile like this is really important as well. So there I am folding the edges of the book to see where it ends. And yeah, I just kind of eyeballed it. I didn't really care too much about how accurate it was. Because of the angel wings I cut out, it was missing spaces at the top, and I do resolve that later. So here I am cutting the extra remaining pieces of paper to fill in the little two gaps at the top that sort of look like canines. There was a part here that was ever so slightly folded off, so I decided to cut a blank sheet of paper and then smack it on top like that. And I decided to cut this fist out of a doodle I did of my fist. So here I am, just rearranging things once again. Again, there's no real concrete plan. It's just me moving things around and then seeing, does this feel right? Does this not feel right? Does it look weird? If it does, take it off. If it doesn't, let's just keep it on there. Or, you know, let's see how it goes. And yeah, the lady that I cut here, she worked out, but the bush didn't work out, so I ended up putting it inside for a different drawing, which is a drawing of Jace from Arcane. For that unfinished part of the sketchbook, I did have dried pressed flowers in mind, but I decided to use it on here. So what I did right now is use the scrap paper and write a quote from Arcane that the character Victor says, which is, "There's no prize to perfection, only an end to pursuit," which it plays into the theme of the perfectionism that I'm really trying to conquer that I was talking about. So I did that. I haven't put pursuit down yet, but the words weren't standing out enough, so I'm gonna trace some of it out with the dark brown felt tip pen I have. So I did do more stuff off screen, and it was just me on internet archives once again, and yeah, I found this dope painting of a skull with flowers coming out of it, and look, I used a rock Hyrax over there. Unfortunately, I eventually covered it up because there's no actual reason, it just played out that way. Which is unfortunate because I really am a fan of these little fellas. So I used tracing paper that I had from one of my earliest assignments in the foundational classes of graphic design. It reminds me of Arlo Parks' song Porta 400, which says, "Making rainbows out of something painful." And I'll be honest, low-key, that program did traumatize me just a little bit. So, you know, it was nice to make something for myself and reclaiming my autonomy, not to sound dramatic. Like, I wasn't in chains and forced to do shit like that one photo of that man with a Wacom tablet, but it was a very grueling program. And I have so many scraps from that program, and I didn't want to get it just thrown away because that's kind of a waste, so I'm really glad that the tracing paper worked out. So I sealed the front, back, and the spine of the book, but it was quite sharp. It cut me actually, and so I used, I don't know what it's called, but it's these clear tapes that you can really squish the hell out of. The tape did make it look a lot more rough, but that's alright, because the point of this is to do it for myself, and there's a lot of freedom in that.